the time is now, right? And here's what I mean by that. The clock is ticking on every one of us. And tomorrow is not promised, next month or next year. And if you feel like you deserve more out of life and you feel like you're meant to do more, then why would you waste 1 minute?
Kent, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, man, thanks for having me, bro.
Dude, pleasure to have you on the show, man. It's amazing. I know we're in quarantine right now, so you probably have a little more time than usual to do these types of things, man. You're a busy guy.
I am a busy guy, but you would be shocked, probably busier now than I've ever been, right? One of those where, depending on the way you're looking at things, either you've got a mountain of opportunity or you have a mountain of obstacles. And right now there's opportunity everywhere. So glad we were able to put this together.
I love it, man. Tell us about that, because there's a lot of uncertainty out there right now. There's a lot of doubt in the marketplace. Not everybody is feeling the land of opportunity mindset, man. So from your perspective, what do you think is going to be the biggest opportunity for entrepreneurs going forward?
Well, I mean, anytime, obviously I come from the real estate background, right? And so anytime you have these massive economic forces that are in play here, I don't care what market you're in, you're going to have opportunities that come about. Now, unfortunately, nobody wishes distress or wishes a pandemic or economic disaster on anybody. But let's just be very candid. And when that does happen, recessions create a lot of opportunity. They create a lot of millionaires. They create a lot of people that were financially challenged to find their way out and find their way in much better situations than they went in. And that's just a fact. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, is completely irrelevant. It is just simply a fact. The bottom line is that people right now have a chance to improve themselves dramatically, whether that is through information, whether that is through action. They have the ability to learn new skills. It's kind of being forced upon them. And so, yeah, I mean, you can certainly look at it and say that why is this happening to me? Or you can certainly look at it and say, I'm glad this is happening for me. And I'm just in camp too, right? And I always have that you will get, one thing's for sure, you're going to get a hell of a lot more what you focus on. And so I promise you, if you focus on any of these situations, this is just the latest and greatest example of it. But if you focus on very, very challenging situations and you focus on being grateful that it's happening to you, because something's got to improve, something's got to get you right. You maybe have been stuck in a dead-end job before. You may have not really been able to have the opportunity to go and improve yourself, go take that course, go invest in that e-com store, start that business, whatever it was, all those things we tell ourselves over the years. Well, now's your chance. And so to not look at that as an opportunity, I think it's just kind of, it's a choice.
I definitely agree with you, Ken. This whole situation for me personally has definitely forced me to do the things that I've wanted to do and I just put off for so long, which one of them is writing a book, actually, right? Like, I'd be a fool and disappointed myself to come out of this and not have accomplished like that one thing, right? With all this time on our hands.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be real easy to see which camp you fell into, right? Fast forward 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year from now, you will see dramatic change in a select few people in your world, and you will quickly understand why that change happened. It's because they took advantage of the opportunity that is directly in front of them. And you will see others that, exactly what camp they fall into. They were the people that, just to put it candidly, were so focused on the obstacles, they ended up falling victim to what is going on in their head, and they made it real. And I don't want to discount in any way, shape, or form. I don't want to be cavalier about that. I absolutely understand, appreciate that we are all in very, very challenging times. Whether that is financial, whether that is businesses are being shut down, people losing their jobs, however that's manifesting itself in your world. But the reality of the situation is this is a chance. If you're sitting there and you're in the real estate space and I can't go look at properties, or I can't, buyers or sellers or whatever, there are so many ways to conduct that transaction out virtually that and sit there and learn a new skill on how to do that. That if you don't take your knowledge and then apply it in just a quick pivot, then that's on you, because that information is there, and that's your choice. But to not adapt and to not pivot and not take advantage of what's in front of you, like I said, I feel very, very strongly you'll be able to see very quickly who's doing that and who's not.
Powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. Now, I do want to give the listeners a quick little introduction on who you are. I know you're very, very well known in this space. But for the people that don't know, you're actually the founder and CEO of REWW, which is Real Estate Worldwide. You're a very avid investor. You've been in the game for, years and years and years. Very big in the software space, very big in the wholesaling, investing space. Just kind of, wearing multiple hats here. So I want to take it back a little bit, because you've been in the game for quite some time now, but you actually got started in the grocery industry. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So
Correct.
Ken, would you mind to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, and I mean literally my entire life. I started, I had a bunch of little small businesses when I was a teenager. And then when I was 17, I started a business with my father, an arbitrage business. And what that business was that anytime you walk into a grocery store or a convenience store or, CVS, doesn't matter. An average grocery store roughly has about 45,000 items in it. And of those 45,000, probably 30,000 of them, operate in the way I'm about to break it down for you. So if you can imagine, manufacturers produce those items and they sell them either directly to those retailers, or they sell them through distributors that put them on the shelves. And that little barcode, that UPC code that is on, here I am with a bottle of smart water right here, right? So this little code right here, it's on every item, right? Most people just go through the world blindly and have no idea what that is. Well, that code basically is a signal to all the manufacturers, all the retailers in the world that, hey, this 10-digit code makes this one item unique. And it is the same code used on this same item everywhere in the world, right? So I can buy this bottle of water here, but if I was in Brazil and the code was the same, then I know it's exactly come from the same plant, same manufacturer. Exactly. Now, what is different is that the manufacturer sells it at significantly different prices to all of, and they do it, at the local level. So literally, this bottle of smart water here in San Diego, they could be selling it to a couple wholesalers or a couple of distributors, and they could be selling it for $5 a case. And I'm just pulling a number out. And then 60 miles up the road here in LA, they could be selling it for $25 a case. And so if you can imagine, now think about that for a minute, the exact same product manufactured millions and millions of times a year is being sold at that different of a price, right? And so we started a business where we would go in and buy excess inventory from anybody, retailers, wholesalers, it didn't really matter, distributors in one market where we knew it was being sold at a discount. And then we would turn around, put it on a truck and ship it to some other market where the manufacturer wasn't selling it on a discount. And so, again, back to the example, this thing being sold for $5 in one market, we would come in and pay them 10, and then we would go down the street and sell it for 20. So this guy's getting $5, that guy's saving $5, and we made $10 on the spread. And that little company that we did that with, by the time I was 23, I was running a $50 million a year company out of Memphis, Tennessee. By the time I was 27, I was running an $800 million a year company. And by the time I was 30, it was $1.8 billion, and it had become the 7th largest privately held company in the state of Florida. So my 20s and my come up and my experience from basically 17 to 30 is probably vastly different than most of the world out there. I was wildly successful at a very, very young age. I whatever I touched turned to gold in a lot of areas of my life. I was making millions and millions of dollars and truly did believe that I was invincible, that I could not fail, because I hadn't up until that point. So, yeah, I mean, it was that grocery business is unlike, what you would define as groceries. People have no idea that this industry exists, but it's billions of dollars every year to this day still happens. And this is pre-internet, being able to get access. I mean, this is all being done pad and paper and a calculator all day long.
Wow. Arbitrage, right?
Arbitrage. You got it.
Wow, man, that's an incredible come up story. 23 years old. I'm curious, how did you discover this idea? Is this something somebody tipped you off about, or you just thought about it one day?
My father owned grocery stores when I was growing up, and back then, so this is 1988 or 1987, basically into the year 2000. That's the 13-year period we're talking about here. So basically through the 90s. And at that time, every single week, we owned grocery stores, and at every single week, we would get what's called a deal book. So the local distributors and the local manufacturers would send in a book, right, a bound book into the it's like a catalog. Think of it like that, like an office supply catalog, right? We've all seen those.
Mm-hmm.
They would send a catalog every week to all the grocery stores in the area and say, okay, here's your book, order your product, right, for the stores. And when they send that in, what kind of tipped us off is that one distributor would send in, hey, here's all the stuff we have in stock. So we have Maxwell House coffee, Peter Pan peanut butter, 20,000 items, right? And here's the price we're willing to sell it. And then their competitor, who's 5 miles away trying to supply our stores, would send in their book. And you would see the exact same UPC code, this 10-digit code, and this guy's selling it for $10 and this guy's selling it for $40.
Mm.
And that's the aha, right? You're like, wow, can it really be that? Can it be that easy? Can I just go over and buy it? And this guy wants to sell it for 10. I'm going to buy it from him for 10 and go. And if he's selling it for 40, maybe I can sell it to him for 30. Let's see if that works. And it just did.
So that light bulb just went off, and
billions and billions of dollars later, right? I mean, and an industry takes off, and again, still exists today. Still happens every single day in the grocery industry.
Right. That's an incredible story, man. 23 years old. I mean, what was it like for you to start achieving so much success, like at that age, right? Did you always know that you were going to be doing something on that big level, or were you kind of like spinning your tires trying to figure it all out? Like, I'm just curious to like go into your mindset.
Well, like I said, success. Well, first off, being raised in an entrepreneurial family, I clearly knew that I would never work for anybody my entire life. That myth was never sold to me in any way, shape, or form, right? I was never made to believe that I needed to go to college or I needed to go get a job or anything else. I was always kind of ingrained in me that I would always go out and do my own thing. And so when you raise a kid that way, so it didn't seem unnatural to me at all, because I just didn't know any different, right? And I had no exposure to any of it. My exposure was, hey, you're going to go out and you're an entrepreneur. You're designed to go do this. And so then being successful at a young age, that seemed a lot more natural to me than maybe it should have, right? Because looking back, I mean, I realized how crazy that shit was. But at the time, it didn't seem that way. It just seemed like this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what's normal, and this is the way it's supposed to be. So when I was 23 years old, running a multi-million-dollar company and had a bunch of 40-year-old guys working for me, and it never once did it seem like I was not in the right place and doing the right thing. It was only when I got down the line and gained some perspective many years later, when I was that 40-year-old guy, and I look back and I'm like, holy shit, I can't even believe at 23, 25, 26 this was going on. Or even when I had my own son, and my own son's turning 23, 24, 25, and 26, right? And I realized, God, man, just how young that really is. But to me, in my headspace at the time, it seemed perfectly natural, which is part of the reason, quite frankly, why I was successful is because, we have an amazing gift when we're coming up. The world has not gotten to us yet. We are extremely naive, and we believe in a lot of cases that we are invincible, right? We are a product of the information that we take in and the wisdom that we gain. And so, if your experience is that every time I do something, I win, every time I do something, I win, and that's just your experience through life, well, naturally you believe that you can't lose. And imagine approaching every single situation in your life that I can't lose. What are the chances that you will win? a lot better. And the reason is because you don't see the risk. You're not looking, it's not, you're not in survival mode. It's like, no, if you were brought up, think of it like this. If you were brought up, um, believing you could fly, like you, and we've all seen kids do this, like little kids before they're taught that they can't jump off the couch and get hurt or jump off the table and get hurt, they believe that they can go stand on top of a table and a countertop and jump right off it and they're going to be just fine. It's only through those actions do they realize that, oh wow, I can actually hurt myself. Well, the same is true in business. When you believe you can do anything, you're willing to take great risk. You're willing to go what everybody else looks at and like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing that. You're like, what are you talking about? I can't get hurt. And amazingly, when you do that, it's a massive asset because when everybody else is kind of playing it safe, you're going for it and you're going for it in a huge way. And for me, that just happened to work out very, very well. That was the biggest asset I brought to the company was my youth and my naivety, and that I believed I was invincible and I wasn't afraid to question everything and go for anything. And a business, a lot of times when you put that kind of fuel into a business, it explodes.
I think I totally agree with you, man. I think that is one of the entrepreneur's greatest asset is the ability to be bold and take risks. Because so many people that don't have that mindset, they just overanalyze everything, and they kind of develop that analysis paralysis where they just don't take any action at all. They're constantly just worried about, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? What if I fail? And what if I embarrass myself? And then they don't do anything, right? And
I mean, give me ignorance on fire every day rather than knowledge on ice. I'll take ignorance on fire all day long because knowledge on ice does nobody any good.
Boom. That's a gold nugget right there. I love it, man. So you're not in the grocery industry anymore. You're in real estate, right? So walk us through that. Like, what led you to depart from this massively successful business that you were running?
Well, when the company grew very quickly. We were acquired. I was in Memphis, Tennessee. I was moved down to Boca Raton, Florida, by the company that purchased our organization. I was effectively thrown the keys of the much larger organization and said, hey, go do, work your magic here. And like I said, took it from $800 million when I was 27 to 1.8 billion. And at that point, I wanted my March 14th of 2000. It was a Monday morning. I kind of was in my mind, had been thinking enough about that I wanted my equity back, right? I wanted to get a bigger cut. I'd seen the growth that I had been driving, or that I felt like I had been driving. The reality was there was a lot of people, including me, and I felt like I wanted all my equity back in my company. And the guy, or the two guys that owned the company, didn't feel that way. And I walked in on 7 a.m. March 14th, had my briefcase over my shoulder, popped into my mentor and the president of the company at the time, and said, hey, I want to talk to you about getting my equity back. And really kind of pushing this thing to the next level. Everybody's making a shit ton of money, including me, but I would like my ownership. And his comment to me was, yeah, I don't really think that's going to happen. Very cavalier like that. And it hit me wrong. And in an instant, I was like, well, you know what? I resign. And I walked out and never thought about it, never considered what I was doing. A decision like that deserved a lot more attention than I was giving it. I was just pissed. And never even made it to my desk. Put my briefcase over my shoulder, walked back outside, got in my little Porsche, drove away, and was very, very pissed that I could not get my equity back. And quite frankly, was extremely jaded because I thought, again, having come up to and be so successful around so much money for so long, I honestly, it didn't even occur to me that I could struggle, right? I just thought, I'm going to just go set up my own company very quickly. I'm going to go, and I did have a non-compete, but I knew that I could go and go after it really quickly in a matter of 6 months. And so I walked out of there full of piss and vinegar and angst, and decided I was going to go start my own company, and now I would own it all over again. And I started trying to pirate their employees, pirate their customers, basically made every stupid decision I could possibly make because I was so mad. And over a 2-year period, they bled me to death. I lost millions and millions and millions of dollars, chased it all the way down like a bad gambler. So in 22 months, I went from having several $1 million in the bank to roughly right at about $4,000 in the bank. It was devastating. It was one of the worst periods of my life. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Um, but it needed to happen to me. I needed to get humbled. I needed to get knocked down. I needed to suffer because I hadn't done any of that up to that point. And so losing everything I'd ever worked for, going through a divorce during that time, losing all of my money, losing all my possessions, losing all my friends, because all of my friends and network and everybody was all wrapped up in this organization I built, right? I mean, that's my entire life was wrapped up in this. And so losing all of that and effectively burning every bridge on the way down was a really, really dark time for me. But it put me in a place to where, ultimately, I moved from my house on the intracoastal down there in Boca Raton, Florida, and multi-million-dollar house. I moved into my girlfriend's 800 square foot apartment, and effectively started over. It wasn't like that. It was tail between my legs, shame, sleepless nights, suicidal thoughts. It was all that stuff. But basically, what it ended up happening was I sat there and watched a late night infomercial one night and saw somebody talking about real estate investing and decided to go down to one of those dumb events, and was just desperate enough to do it. And they talked about it. I'd never heard of wholesaling. I'd never heard of anything like it, but I was desperate enough to make the decision to do it. And when you've been making a lot of bad financial decisions for a lot of years at that point, and only have a few $1,000s left in the bank, I mean, going and taking $1,000 and buying a wholesaling course was a big decision for me, right? It was a very painful decision. Any way you cut that, that's about 25% of my net worth. And I'd made so many bad decisions by that point. I didn't trust myself. But I did it and learned very quickly how to wholesale houses. And basically 30 days later, I cashed my first check, and made $8,000 on a wholesaling deal, picked up the check in Coral Springs, Florida, and bawled like a baby right there in the parking lot of the title company, because I'd finally done something in a different place, in a different arena, a different industry that I had no relationships, no experience, nothing, but I knew I was going to eventually be okay right then.
Boom. Kent, man, I want to touch on some of the points that you've made, because there's a lot to digest, man. And thank you so much for sharing all that, bro. When you had that moment, when you walked in to your company at the time, and you were pissed off, right? That's kind of like a fuck this moment, right? Like, I'm not gonna even think about it. Fuck this. I'm out of here. And a lot of people right now, especially the listeners, are kind of feeling that way with what they're currently doing, and the thought maybe have crossed their mind, like, hey, I want to be done with this and go do my own thing. Right? I want to quit this job and go all in and doing my own thing. Do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea?
It's a tricky question, right? So in the moment, it was a bad idea. Knowing, if I knew then what I know now, I would have taken a much different approach. I would have taken a bigger, deeper breath, and really tried to give that decision the respect that it deserved. And not that I would have made any other decision, but I had a lot of people that counted on me. I had 600 employees there. I had over 10 years invested in this process, 13 years invested in this process. I was nothing short of the golden boy in an entire industry. I had mentors that had taken me under their wing and believed in me, and out of respect to all of them, they deserved more from me. But that was my immaturity coming out. Now, with that being said, it was the greatest decision I ever made in my life, right? So I don't regret it for 1 second, and I probably would have made the same decision. But just the people and the gravity of that decision deserved more respect. I mean, I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't done that. Think about it, right? I wouldn't be this guy in real estate if I hadn't gotten forced into that box. But my back was against the wall, and I certainly am empathetic, and I understand that feeling very, very well with people that feel like this, in this particular moment. And you got to do what's right for you. I can tell you this for sure. The time is now, right? And here's what I mean by that. The clock is ticking on every one of us, and tomorrow is not promised, next month or next year. And if you feel like you deserve more out of life, and you feel like you're meant to do more, then why would you waste 1 minute whether you're in a pandemic or not. Why would you waste one more minute in something that is not you wringing everything out of life that you can? Because you don't get any mulligans here, right? There are no second chances. You get one shot, one day at a time, to get everything out of life that you possibly deserve. And to put that off and kick that can down the road at any level is just, to me, irresponsible and disrespectful to time. Time stops for no one. And if you want to have everything in life that you deserve, and you are willing to sacrifice to go get it, then start sacrificing. And that means if you need to walk out of a job and take some hits and eat crap for a while, well, you know what? That's what it looks like. That's what the real world looks like. But if you want all the good stuff, you got to go through the hard times as well.
Boom. And for the video listener, or for the video watchers on YouTube, you have a tattoo on your arm. Is that a clock? I can't really see.
It's a clock with no hands. So I have a wristband that I wear every day. It says the time is now. I don't wear a watch. Every time I look at my wrist, it's always right. And then the tattoo effectively says the exact same thing, but in Latin, with a watch that has no hands. And then the tattoo basically says, remember that you will die, step ferociously into the day.
Wow.
I live this and breathe this I believe it with every fiber of my body that the time is right now. And you have to get very, very passionate and dialed in on it. And when you do that, then you'll be in a hurry to create not only a business, basically the life that you deserve. And the business is a component of that. And so if you're in a dead end job and you're having those types of thoughts, and you find yourself, playing that what if scenario, there's never a perfect time. There's never a perfect situation. And there's always sacrifice. And so if you deserve it, then go get it now.
Totally agree. Too many people act like they live twice, right? They just waste so much time, and it's detrimental, right, to your goals and your dreams. And time doesn't wait for anybody. So I definitely agree with you on that, man. And I'm very curious, Kent. I've been in business for the last 7 years, right? I think right now is probably the toughest moment in my personal real estate career, just because of all the uncertainty that's going on right now with, houses selling on the market, renovated properties, so on and so forth. I'm curious to know what you felt and how you overcame losing literally everything. Going from making all this money, driving the Porsche, down to $4,000. Like, how did you work through that? Those emotions and the anxiety of losing it all.
One day at a time. And it was devastating. Let me just be very, very clear, right? I was a shell of myself. I was a fragile human being when I was going through all that, right? I'm 20 years removed of it. Oh shit! What? Yeah, I mean, almost 20 years to the day, right? March 14th of 2000. So, a little over 20 years removed from it, and it took me probably 5 years before I felt like I was even kind of okay about it, right? It was. Here's what I've learned. What choice do you have, right? Unless you're just going to go, off the deep end and go crawl up in a hole and die, then get up and get going and start taking some steps. They don't have to be huge steps. They don't have to be bold steps, but they need to be steps. And that was kind of the conversation that was going in my head constantly. Like, you can't go out like this. You cannot let this moment define you like this. This moment's going to define you one way or the other. And at that point, it was defining me as the loser, the guy that was, wasn't what everybody thought that, what everybody believed I was, right? I've been this wildly successful guy for so long that in my mind, I didn't want anybody to ever say that, well, I didn't try, I didn't push, I didn't come back, I didn't. So that was the kind of conversation I had to have with myself. Like, this cannot define you this way. At a minimum, it needs to define you as the guy that kept fighting, that kept, even if I'm not successful, I'm going to keep fighting. I don't want my son to see me give up. I don't want my, new wife to see me giving up. I want them to see me fighting for my dreams. And that kind of positive talk and that kind of, keeping your head in the game can prove to be extremely valuable.
Awesome, man. So you said that you found a infomercial talking about real estate. I think that's super awesome, man. You went down to a a boot camp or a 1 day seminar, whatever it was, and you discovered real estate wholesaling. What year was this? Do you remember?
Yeah, this was this was December of 2002.
December 2002. Okay. So you find this whole new industry and you took action on it, right? Something sparked and the light bulb went off, and you learned about real estate wholesaling. And you got into that first deal, right? That first deal 30 days later, which is actually like, that's a really, really good success right there. It's like a record time, man. 30 days after a seminar, get into your first deal. And you made $8,200 on that first deal. Would you mind
Correct.
to tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I basically had found a deal in it was in West Palm Beach, Florida. I found a deal, a little townhouse, and I happened to have met a guy at a RIA club, and so I found the deal and was able to flip it very quick. He paid all cash for it. As you were laying out, made a little over 8 grand. Picked it up at a Coral Springs title company, and went and sat in my Ford Explorer truck, which it's go back three years earlier. Not only had I had the Porsche, but I had the Range Rover, and then I had the Lexus 4x4, and I had the Ferrari, and I had and here I am in a beat up Ford pickup truck at this point, one of those 4-door Explorer pickup things at the time. And just, I mean, I started bowling, and it represented freedom to me. And it sounds silly because I've done thousands and thousands of transactions since then, made millions and millions of dollars. But I will never forget that moment, because I can tell you what washed over me in that moment is that I knew I found a way to do something that wasn't in the grocery space, that I didn't have to rely on any of my relationships or any family or any friends or anything. I'd done something that was completely outside of myself, outside of my norm, outside of my comfort zone. And $8,200 represented twice as much money as I had currently in the bank. So
Mm.
I'm like, oh, dude, here we go. I don't have to do this very often, and I'm going to be able to do what I need to do. And so it kind of set me down a path. And over the course of the next 18 months, I did 91 deals and made over $1 million. It was the spark I needed to light the wildfire inside of me. Right? I knew I had it in me. I just needed to have that feeling again.
Wow. So first year, 91 deals.
18 months, first
18
months.
months, 18 months, 91 deals. Holy shit, man. That's a lot of deals as somebody just starting out. I'm curious, like what were you doing at the time? Were you running bandit signs, direct mail, cold calling? Like what was working for you to get these motivated sellers?
I was doing bandit signs and direct mail. And I started a company at that time called 1-800-SELL-NOW. I was smart enough to realize that there had to be a better way to market. And so I found the guy that owned the number 1-800-SELL-NOW. He did not realize it was a vanity brand. He just had it as an 800 number. And I licensed it from him. I turned around and started using it. And he was up in Minnesota. I'm down in Florida. I started using the number down there where I was. Found a service where I could forward the number based off of the zip code that they put in. And so I started really using a lot of branding and marketing very quickly to kind of set myself apart. And so and the good thing is that using that kind of branding technique, I was creating an audience, right? I was effectively creating a brand that people could identify with, not only the seller and the buyer side, but in general. People kind of knew me as the 1-800-SELL-NOW guy. And that was very, very powerful for me. It's my first kind of foray into any kind of branding, right? But it taught me that the power of just being known, right? Having some authority and being able to walk into a room and people knew who I was, and that how much opportunity that would ultimately bring to me. And so, yeah, a lot of it was direct response marketing. A lot of it was, quite frankly, because of referrals. Certainly in the last 6 months of the 18 months, it was people just knew who I was and they wanted to be doing business with me. And so whether that was on the sell side or the buy side, it really didn't matter. They liked the idea of being in the business of buying and selling deals with me. So that worked very well for me.
Mm. So I'm curious, Ken, when you were doing all of these deals and all of these transactions, were you a solopreneur or did you have a team at the time? Were you slowly building people into your organization?
I was starting the first year I was a solopreneur, and then I added a couple guys helping me. And then, but I still didn't have any of I still didn't really understand what I was doing. We were still trying to basically, a way of a lot of partnerships is basically everybody's kind of doing everything, right? Whatever the hell needed to get done, we were going to get it done. And I was paying, flat salaries and then a little piece of every deal. And let's just figure out how to do as much volume as we can. It wasn't a business at all. It was, instead of one hustler, it was three hustlers. And probably in 2005, 2006 is when I got married, and I got really serious about really automating and systematizing what I was doing. And so, hired a mentor, got some people around me that were really kind of walking me through the way to structure, and by the way, not real estate guys, people in business, basically the way to structure this particular company. And when I started doing that, and my motivation was very simple, right? I had a new wife, new bride, had a little girl on the way, and I wanted to spend time with them. And the big epiphany for me is that if I stopped buying and selling, the money stopped. And so I didn't really own a business. I owned a job. That's what I owned. And I could tell myself anything I wanted to tell myself. I just owned a high-paying job, because if I stopped, everything stopped. So that's not a business. And so I became extremely passionate about, I'm going to figure out a way that this thing hums along without me. And so, like I said, got really, really passionate about automation, got really passionate about systems, processes, people, became an expert on how to do that and how to scale. And so the timing of that ended up being perfect, because, that perfectly positioned us to really kind of to really start growing. But it also brought me back to my roots, because in the grocery space, the way I grew that business from 800 million to 1.8 billion was I again, going back to being naive and young and full of, whatever. One of the things that kind of made me famous or infamous or whatever you want to say in that particular business was that I questioned everything, and I decided that I was going to go do something revolutionary inside of that company. And that was, hey, how about we just go ask our customers for some information? Tell us what you want to buy, when you want us to deliver it, how much of it you want to buy, what price you want to pay for it. I mean, it sounds so silly when you hear it like that, but in that particular time, that was revolutionary. People were like, what are you talking about? We get a truckload of this and we sell it that way. Nobody ever goes and says, hey, I'd love to buy this. Why don't you guys go get it? And that concept of reverse wholesaling is how we went from 800 million to 1.8 billion in 30 months. We started working and starting with the end in mind. While all of our competitors were trying to sell what they had, we were just going shopping for what our customers wanted. And so, again, light bulb goes off 2005, 2006. Says, why can I not do that in real estate? I think I can do this. And I had to figure out a way to find who the best client was. And it didn't take me long to figure out that in all of my transactions, the easiest transactions were always with my cash buyers. It didn't take me long to figure out that they were the ones buying multiple properties from me, not one or two. And so I had to come up with a way to find a lot of them. And I had this, ingenious idea at the time that maybe I should just go down to the county courthouse and go look at all the deed transfers that happened the week before, where a mortgage wasn't recorded. Because if they transferred the property, transferred the deed, but they didn't record a mortgage, a lien, or a promissory note, then the only way that property could have gotten transferred, theoretically, was because somebody paid cash. And I just happened to be right. I just started writing it all down, dropping it into spreadsheets, started mailing all these cash buyers, and started getting our phones ringing. All of a sudden, we look like rock stars, because I had no idea that somebody could figure out that I was paying cash. I'd love for you to find me more properties. And so our business goes from 100 deals a year to 300 deals like that, right? We just explode. But not only was it that, it was, I could teach anybody to do that. Because if you're dealing with a cash buyer is going to tell you everything that they're going to tell you everything. Hey, this is what I want. Here's the price I want to pay for it. This is the neighborhood I want it to be in, et cetera. I mean, they're just going to give me all this data that I can then just turn around and make sure that I'm only creating opportunities that fit that. And so the business gets really simple then. I can put anybody in a seat at that place, right? At that point, right? And you just need to go find this, and you need to get this information and give it to him. It's that simple. I mean, we were creating McDonald's for real estate wholesaling. And the timing ended up being perfect, as I said, because about that time, the recession hit. All the banks dried up. Lending went to hell. All my competitors went out of business, and I didn't need banks. I didn't need lending. I was just selling to cash buyers. And so our business just continued to blow up and go crazy. In fact, part of the reason why I get it sounds weird. I don't want to say excited, but part of the reason why this should be an exciting time for a lot of people is that there would be no Kent Clothier if it hadn't been for that '08 recession, because I was doing so well and growing so fast that I got a lot of attention. And people were like, I don't know what you're doing, but I want to know more about it. Can you teach me? Can you show me? Can you help me find cash buyers? And so that's how our software, and that's how our training, and that's where all of that came from. Like things that are extremely common today, they didn't exist back then. There was no cash buyer database. There was no vacant property. There was no private lender. None of that existed. We created all that. And then it's since, people have improved upon it down the line. But all of that came out of what I'm telling you right now is that we had to figure out a way to do it inside of our own business, because we were trying to create systems and processes so that we could enjoy life. And it turned into a whole nother set of businesses outside of that.
You're the inventor, man. The reverse wholesaling godfather. And I know you've taught thousands and thousands of people all over the world how to use these strategies. Funny enough, I actually bought a property in LaPorte, Texas a few years back. And I was going to fix and flip it. I show up to the property one day. There's a piece of paper on the door. The piece of paper says, hello, I see that you have purchased this property for cash. I have many properties just like this one. If you're interested in buying them, give me a call.
I love that.
I called that person right away. I said, one, how the hell did you do this? Two, show me your deals. And, it's such a powerful strategy, right? Go after the people that are buying deals and just find them what they're looking for.
It sounds, when we say it like this, it sounds so, it's like, well, no shit. But you'd be shocked that 95% of the industry, although it is an no shit comment, they don't do it that way. And if they did, life and their business would be so much easier, because you always start with the end in mind. I mean, there is no risk involved. You're not putting properties under contract you don't know, that you can't sell. You know exactly what your buyer is going to pay for it. So that by virtue of knowing that, I can tell you exactly what I can pay for it. So that's how you scale really quickly, right? It's not hard to train somebody to back into a deal when you've got this kind of data. But if you're trying to have them go out there and walk a property and how much is it going to cost to replace the roof and do the floor and all that, that's a lot of information to try to train somebody up on. It doesn't have to be that way.
So Ken, you had that aha moment when people started asking you how you doing this. You're like, okay, it's time to take things to that next level. We got to systematize this and create a program so people can learn this, and also create a software around this strategy so that people can just tap into it and make it easy. 1, 2, 3, right? Probably a lot easier than when you first started doing it. So how did the softwares come about? I mean, Ken, your software is known like all over the United States, right? Thousands and thousands of people use it every day. Like, how did you go from the grocery industry to real estate wholesaling to now a tech enthusiast creating software?
Very simple. I mean, I'm not a tech guy, right? So let's just be very candid. I needed what we were doing in a manual way. And I was more than willing to do that. But I knew that log jam of finding and generating and marketing to those buyers, we were spending a couple $100,000 a year with people to do that. And I knew there had to be a way that we could try to automate. So that was the motivation. That's all it was, is that, hey, how can we automate this process? This is all public record. Now, the public records offices, a lot of them at that point weren't even online. And if they were online, getting data, it was extremely messy, almost unusable. So we had to figure out a way to, at that time, to scrape data, pull data, get access to public records. And so once we figured out that we could do that, our first iteration, I think we went out and we only covered, I want to say 20% of the country. And then, a few months later, we got it up to 40, and then it was 60, and then it was 80. And so after about 2 years, we were able to do it in roughly 3,000 counties around the country. And all of that was hard work. But our motivation was, if I mean, we had a lot of people at that point that were like, listen, you guys, I see you doing it. We were the example, right? We were showing them this is what we're doing inside of our own investing business. We're doing this and we're doing it very, very successfully. If you want to do this, just start with this data, use this letter that I actually gave to them, and go for it. And by the way, this was some pretty scary stuff for us because keep in mind, I'm quite literally handing my competition the playbook on how to go and get my customers, and I'm giving them my actual marketing pieces because there's nothing that would prevent somebody in Broward County, Florida, or Shelby County, Tennessee, or Palm Beach, Florida, prevent nobody from coming and doing that. Basically going and using our data to go find the exact same buyers we were, use our exact same marketing pieces. And in fact, they did try to do that. They've done it. They've tried to do it for years, but that made us better as well. That competition really made us elevate our game. But all of this was scary. We had no idea what it would turn into. The Kent Clothier brand and real estate worldwide and find cash buyers and none of that existed. It was just, we need these systems for our business. And as we need these systems, maybe some other people do. And we started getting really good at marketing and helping other people to get on board. And once they got on board, their success kind of started snowballing. Before you knew it, like I said, it kind of turns into something where you kind of have that light bulb go off again, where you're like, wait, this actually is a real business, right? This is millions and millions of dollars coming through here. Maybe we should invest a lot more money in our infrastructure and in our team and in our salespeople and our customer support and, tech scientists and all that, data scientists and all these different things. But the way I've always grown businesses, or I shouldn't say always, well, the way I've grown businesses for the majority of my life, they start with solving a problem internally. And if it's good enough to solve the problem for us, then it's probably going to solve problems for other people. And that's kind of the way we've started businesses.
I love it, man. Ken, I told you before we started this show, I actually met you back in 2015, 2016 in Los Angeles at a commercial real estate event. And I bought your software at the time. And by the way, I got some pretty big results from using the software, using the system. When I saw you speak on stage, I was sitting with my business partner at the time. I had never seen somebody close the room like you closed and deliver such a powerful message. You're an incredible speaker. Has that always been something that you've wanted to do, or did you take courses and attend trainings to deliver the storytelling method and close sales on stage? Like, when did you realize that that's what you wanted to do with your time as well?
Well, quite frankly, it's not really something I wanted to do. I'm just being very, very candid with you. I will tell you that when I was in the grocery space, I was speaking in front of my 600 sales reps daily, right? And so I was practicing constantly on how to get into somebody's head and extract, what they needed to hear and how to push them over the edge, right? I mean, you're effectively coaching people. And so in that process, as a young guy, I went through some Dale Carnegie training and got really good at it. I took it very seriously. About that was a huge part of my role, was to make sure that my guys were ready and girls were ready to run through walls for me. And then as I got into this space in 2008, I went and I actually hired a speaking coach because I knew that I knew that I could motivate people. I knew that I was good at being a motivational speaker. I knew that I was powerful coming up there, and I owned that. But it's something very different when you're trying to get people to buy from you, right? That's two different skill sets, right? We've all been there when people are speaking, and whether that's a preacher from the pulpit or whatever, we've all seen very, very powerful speakers, but they're not asking you for money, right? Well, maybe the preacher is, but a lot of them are not asking you for money. And so that was a skill that I did not have and I needed to learn. And it requires you to be very, very knowledgeable of your product, very passionate about what you're trying to get done. To your point, being able to tell a story in a way and guide your audience where you want them to go, take them there in a meaningful way. But a lot of this stuff just can't be faked. I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that a lot of it does come to me fairly naturally, and a lot of it is because I'm extremely passionate about what I do. I just, what you see is what you get. I don't give a shit. Well, it's one of those things where I'm just too old to care. I mean, I really, don't care what people think of me. What I know to be true is what I believe in with every fiber of my body, and I'm willing to stand and scream it from the hilltops. And if people resonate with it, great. If they don't, okay. And I've just been very fortunate that a lot more people do than don't.
Yeah, man. You're definitely, a great speaker, super inspirational, and the authenticity shows. When you're selling half the room or more at a commercial event on a single family house, single family software, right? Residential software, you're killing it. Definitely doing something right. Ken, I wanna switch gears here and talk more about present day, right? I want to get into your average day, right? When we're not in this quarantine situation, what are you currently doing with your time nowadays?
Average day, well, let's just say not quarantine. I wake up, I'm up between 4 and 4:30 every morning. And I do that because it allows me to kind of clear my head and get myself starting the day the way I want to start it. I spend time meditating. I definitely spend time reading and listening to podcasts, what have you. I work out every morning. I try to eat breakfast with my kids every morning. I walk my little one to school. I drive my other one to high school. I mean, my priorities in the morning are very, very set, and they are non-negotiable for me. And that helps me to start my day the right way, right? I do not get to my office or really start anything hardcore work related before 9 o'clock in the morning. I do not check emails before noon ever. And the reason is because I time block my time very, very seriously. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I mean, every minute of every day is time blocked on my calendar, right down to gym, food. I mean, it's not in a rigid way, but it is. I plan to be successful, and if I don't lay out the plan, then I can't really argue with the results. And so, whether that is having lunch with my wife, or whether that is going on a date, or whether that is traveling, or whether that is at the gym or driving my daughter to school, it is all on the calendar. I don't, including, hey, I need 2 hours of just me time to do nothing, right? It's on the calendar. Kent time. Do not book meetings here. And so the reason I don't check email before noon is because typically what people do is whether they check email or text or what have you, that sends them into a whirlwind, a tailspin where they're just kind of going off and putting out fires or dealing with issues. And I know how counterproductive that is for me in particular, right? So I do not allow myself to do that. My days are planned. I know exactly where I'm going to be and what I'm going to get done. Come noon, then we start jumping into some of the pressing issues that are coming up there. Certainly, let's be candid. If some crazy issue comes down the line and they need me to get involved, of course, people know how to get ahead of me. But I try to be disciplined enough to not be chasing my tail 24/7, and that's the way I'm able to run multiple companies simultaneously and them all be successful and have a really good life.
Now, is that system something that you developed on your own, or did you take that from someone else?
We all take stuff from everybody. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where I've ever heard it, but I know it's what works for me. I mean, we've all been mentored. I mean, I have mentors all around me, whether they're in masterminds or whether my business partners or my actual mentors that I pay to be in my life, right? Because I want I've been very, very fortunate because I haven't been afraid to make the investments that I needed to make to get in the right circles. And ultimately, a lot of those people have become very, very close friends of mine. And so now, you hang around enough people that are high performers, and they share that kind of information with you. This is what I do. This is what I do. That just becomes, what you do as well. A rising tide raises all ships. So I don't know where I've gotten it from, but when you become friends with somebody like Ed Milet, right, who is a close friend of mine and somebody I count on, and Jesse Itzler and Frank Kern and Roland Frazier and John Asraf and Steve Weatherford, guys like this, Bedros Keuilian, those guys played a really, really, really high level, and they're not going to allow me to play at a low level. So you get around that and you start picking up a few things, and kind of shocking what happens. You kind of get to that next level too.
Ken, I'm so glad you touched on that. There's a lot of people that I see that first get started in the entrepreneurial space that think for some reason that they don't need a coach. They're better than the coach. They're better than the mentor. They can go at it alone and be super, super successful on their own, and coaching's not for them, and they don't have to pay the right people. How important it is for you to be as successful as you are, to have the right people around you? And what would you tell to somebody that has that mentality like, hey, I don't need a mentor, right? I'm good on my own.
You might be good on your own. You will only be as good as the knowledge and the experience that you have. So if you've never flipped more than 20 deals in your life and you continue to believe that you don't need a coach, then I got news for you. You're never going to flip much more than 20 deals in your life because you don't have the information. That's the way our brains actually work. And so you have to give yourself those experiences, and a way to kind of short circuit and collapse that time and get those experiences by proxy is that you work with a coach. I'll give you a really good example of this. If I decided today that I want to be an MMA fighter and I want to compete at the very highest levels, I could go out today and probably watch 100 YouTube videos on it. I could go buy 50 books on it. I could probably, I could go and get so much free information out there. And then if I came to you and I said, dude, I think I'm ready. I'm ready to get in the octagon. I'm ready to compete at a high level. You would look at me like I'm fucking crazy, because I've never been in the ring. I don't have a coach. I haven't put somebody around me that's willing to tell me what I'm doing wrong. I mean, I haven't even gotten in the process yet. You would literally tell me, you are crazy. You're going to get killed. People do it every day in real estate though. Right? Oh, dude, I watched a YouTube video. I read a book. I've listened to a podcast. I got this. I'm going to do it. I don't need a coach. You sound like an idiot is the way I look at it. You need a coach that when I go into the MMA ring, I'm going to have to go in there and I'm going to have to get banged around. I'm going to have to get knocked up or knocked in the face a few times. I'm going to get kicked in the teeth. I'm going to get, pinned. I'm going to get choked out. Because that's business. That's the way the real world works. You're going to get all those things in business too. And then I'm going to come back to the corner. I'm going to sit on the bench and the coach is going to tell me, okay, this is what you did wrong. This is what you got to do here. And then we're going to work on a few things over here, work on a few things. We're going to go back here. You're probably going to get, probably going to take a few more bumps, but we're going to work around it. I'm going to tell you how to get you there faster, right? I'm going to put you in the ring with better sparring partners. we're going to work on this technique. We're going to work on that technique. So the next time you're going to get better and better. The same exact thing is true in business. Every major athlete, every major celebrity, every major business figure that you respect, every single one of them has had a mentor or a coach or somebody in their corner helping them see around corners and understand what's kind of coming up and how to improve and what's the technique and what's the strategy. I've had my mentor used to tell me all the time that there's only one way to coast, and that's downhill. If you're not pedaling, you're going in the wrong direction. And that's what mentors do. They hold you accountable, push you forward, and they make you better. If you are so narcissistic and so full of shit that you don't think that you deserve that in your life and that you can improve and that you're in a hurry, kind of like talking about the time, right? That you're in a hurry to just get the result, and then quite frankly, you deserve to go out there and get your ass whipped. And because that's what happens to people like that. That's what happens to people that read, a few books and watch a few YouTube videos and listen to a few podcasts and then go think they can jump in an MMA ring. We would all look at them like they're insane. And that's exactly the way I look at people that don't go ultimately and invest in themselves with coaching and mentoring. I think it's the exact same. I think it's actually the perfect analogy. I look at them and I think they're insane. I think it's just like, that's the dumbest thing I could do.
Boom. Can't bring in the heat, man. So many golden nuggets right there. Ken, right now, the people are going to want to sign up for your stuff. They're going to want to learn from you. They're going to want to hit you up. What's the current push right now, and where should people go to get involved with you?
Yeah, dude, I'm easy, right? Just go to Facebook and go to Kent Clothier, or go to Instagram, go to Kent Clothier, or go to kentclothier.com. We want to get to know you. I'd love to, I respond to all my messages, all the comments, all the DMs. And then we will gladly, point you in the right direction. Anything you're looking for, any help you're looking for, we're here to help, right? We are way past the point of really having to sell anybody on anything. If you want help, I can tell you that we can help you. It's that simple. So I'd love to connect with you any way and every way that we possibly can.
Awesome, man. And we'll link your social media in the show notes. Ken, I ask every guest this same question. I'd like to extend it to you, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
All right. Awesome, man. In your entire life so far, Kent, what has been the absolute best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I ever received. Hmm. I held my uncle and my mentor's hand when he passed away, and after he had just recently received a $30 million golden parachute as he was leaving a very successful travel company that he had run for many, many years, and that he had helped build this company kind of at the expense of his family. He traveled all over the world, and like I said, was very, very well respected, had made lots of money. Um, and as I was holding his hand, and as he was on a ventilator and couldn't really speak to me, he held up a whiteboard and said, celebrate my life. And then he erased it and basically said, I just wish I had more time. And then held my hand and passed away. I think that the best advice was given to me in that moment, that whether he knew it or not, was that it didn't matter how much money he had in the bank. All the money in the world couldn't buy him the one thing that he wanted most desperately on his deathbed, and that was one more minute. And we are blessed with those minutes and those hours and those days and those weeks constantly. Don't waste them. It's that simple. Use every one of them to your fullest potential, because you deserve it. It doesn't get any easier than that.
Boom. Ken, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Pleasure to chat it up with you for the last hour, and thank you so much for delivering the value that you did. And I know the listeners are going to really enjoy it, and you definitely got me inspired, brother. So thank you again.
Anything I can do for you, brother.
Absolutely.
Anything I can do for you, to reach out. Peace.
Absolutely, Kent.